let's begin with a premise, okay? A popular premise for all, the notion that radio listening hasn't changed. You saw last week from Arbitron, they released the numbers, the radar numbers that said another 400,000 people listen to radio, 90-something% of everybody listens to the radio. Time spent listening hasn't changed one iota in the past year. Is that true? I mean, does that resonate with you? Does that resonate with you in terms of your own behaviors with radio over the years? Does that resonate with you in terms of the behaviors of the people you work with, the people you know, your family? Do your kids use the radio the same way you did when you were their age? That would assume that radio is unlike every other major mass medium. That would assume that radio is, in some meaningful way, special. Is radio special? And what does it mean if it isn't? If radio is special, it's not like newspapers. These are the newspaper numbers over time. That second line from the top is total weekday circulation. It goes from over 60 million to just over 40 million in the space of about 12 years. Down. Okay, now people consume more news than ever before. They just don't happen to consume it in newspapers. Radio is not like that. Radio is special. Radio is also not like the evening news. The evening news on the networks. The ratings from 1980 to 2012 from about 14 down to about 5. Now, people consume more news than ever before, more video news than ever before. They just don't consume it on network news broadcasts. But radio is not like that. Radio is special. Radio is also special compared to primetime television. Primetime commercial ratings. This is from the first quarter of 2013. Fell 8% across the board. That's the 6th straight quarter of total TV declines and the steepest drop since the 3rd quarter of 2009. Down, down, down. Now, people are watching more primetime television than ever before. They just don't happen to be watching it on television. So, is radio special? In order to answer that question, we need to go back to 1983. You remember 1983? Just for those of you keeping score, that was 30 years ago. 1983, the year that this movie was in the theaters, Risky Business, Tom Cruise in his underwear. It's the year that this man released Thriller, the best-selling album of all time. It's the year that this man was conceived. I don't mean we conceived of him, you understand. It's the year that this movie, Valley Girl, was also in the theater. Valley Girl, starring a very young, fresh-faced actor named Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage, who was the kid from the wrong side of the tracks dating the Valley Girl, Deborah Foreman. They're driving through Hollywood at night in one scene in the movie. It's very sketchy out there. There's a girl in the back seat, and she says, if you stop this car, I'm not getting out. And Nick turns to her and says, fine, if they attack the car, save the radio. That was 1983. Would you see that line in a movie today? These are some statistics you probably have not seen. These are Arbitron statistics. These are average quarter-hour ratings, i.e., the fraction of the population listening to radio right now. Over the years from 1980 to the present. You're looking at a decline that's pretty steady over that time. What's the peak number? It's 18.2. What year is that? 1983. The peak number of average quarter-hour for rating. Been going down since. Now, the last few years, that's a PPM influence, obviously, so there's some squirreliness with the data, but it doesn't matter because the trend is solid prior to that time. Declining average quarter-hour rating. Wait a minute, I thought radio was special, but that's not all. This, by the way, is compiled by the Radio Research Consortium, the organization that aggregates data for public radio broadcasters, but this is not public radio data. This is general radio data. Here's another picture, and this one I know you haven't seen because this is barely public information, again from the Radio Research Consortium. These are PPM markets, persons using measured media. Metro average, person 6+, Monday through Friday, 5A to 1A. These are over 3 years. 2010 on top, 2011 in the middle, 2012 on the bottom. The bottom line of this picture is that between 2010 and 2012, average quarter-hour ratings for radio declined by 9%. Let me repeat that. Between 2010 and 2012, average quarter-hour ratings for radio declined by 9%. Whoops. So what am I saying here? Am I saying radio is dead? No, not by a long shot. Of course not. Radio works. Radio is effective. Radio works for consumers. Radio works for advertisers. You know that. I know that. We all know that. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is maybe radio isn't special. And isn't that okay? if radio isn't special? Isn't that okay if we understand that radio functions like every other mass medium under the sun, that radio is subject to the same trends, the same cosmic trends that affect television, that affect film, that affect music, these same cosmic trends? Why in the world would we be immune? Here's why it's important. If you're going to make plans for the future, for your brands, for your industry, which is better, to make them on the basis of myths or to make them on the basis of reality? Under which scenario can you make better plans, better decisions, and do smarter things? In which case can you create a better future for radio? The challenge for radio, and it's the challenge for all media, it's the crisis of attention, right? Attention's not exposure. Exposure is, I've got the PPM device on my hip, and I walk by a radio signal, and it hears the signal I don't, and that counts as listening, when it hears what I don't. That's called listening. That's different from attention. Attention is granted. Attention is given, right? Attention is something I give to you because you earn it, you deserve it, because I care, because I'm interested, because I'm passionate. That's attention. That's the crisis. How do we solve that problem? How do we turn around that attention problem? There are ways, and that's what this day is about. And the two ways are unique and compelling content and platforms. Platforms, namely, the places where attention lives now, where you can place that unique and compelling content in a variety of forms and shapes and sizes, depending on where I, the consumer, am. Because it's about me, it's not about you anymore.